Welcome to today's podcast. I'm Chuck Moore and I'm joined by my co hosts Gary Carpenter and Al Hoffman. Today we're diving into a big question for students and parents. Do colleges really have GPA requirements for enrollment? And if they do, how much do these numbers really matter? Gary, do you have something to say on this?
That's a great question because a lot of families assume GPA is everything. But the truth is, while GPA is important, it's not the only thing admissions officers look at. Al?
Well, we're going to hit this in a couple of different directions, and I think there's a minimum GPA requirement that one would assume, and what happens if you don't meet them, and then how high your GPA should be in general, and how to set GPA goals based on the college you're aiming for. I have some comments on these that deal around the fact of affordability, but from the standpoint of the perspective of IS talk, then yeah, let's talk about from the standpoint of GPA and what it was going to take to get into that college you want to go to.
Let's start here then. Do most colleges require a GPA? The answer is sometimes. Many four-year universities do list a minimum GPA on their website, but it often is more of a guideline than a hard cutoff. Don't you feel like that's true, Gary?
Exactly. Public universities are the ones most likely to use GPA. And if you think about it, they have a high application rate where they have to make some type of guidelines in which they can determine who they're going to admit or not admit. For example, Massachusetts public university system requires at least a 3.0 weighted average GPA for admission. So a minimum GPA isn't always the line in the sand. It's definitely something you want to pay attention to if you're looking at a public university or any school with a large application pool.
Al, what if you don't meet the GPA requirements of the college or universities? What happens then?
Well, you're not necessarily out of luck because it's not only just the GPA, but it's the difficulty of classes taken to get that GPA. And so the colleges will look at this from the standpoint of a business and look at this from the standpoint of the ability, the academic ability of the student. Um, so colleges that look at that from the business standpoint, they're remember, they're really not doing a 1 year product. They're doing a 4 year product or maybe even a 6 year product. They don't want any open seats going through the process. If somebody fails or quits, it really does hurt them. So that's what kind of drives this. However, desire on the student's part and their ability to express that in their essay or in an interview can obviously make up for a lot of challenges. Uh, but let's not forget, colleges look for those standout qualities. You know, if you have the big, strong GPA and the difficulty of classes taken to get it, you are going to be nationally more ranked. Especially if you can combine that with a skill set like a talent degree or a athletic position in the colleges, businesses. Uh, but remember, it's always a significant amount, a significant caveat I meant to say. You can count on being the exception. Your your best bet is still to meet uh, the the GPA requirements of that college. Now, these are posted, by the way, Chuck, at the in many places, the college search engines. The one that I would probably go to is the iPads or the College Board. They'll post that the freshman class's GPA for last year. If you're below it, then you're going to be less desirable. If you're above it, you're going to be more desirable. So it's really that simple. But does it affect you from the standpoint of getting into that college if you have a 2.0? Well, of course it does. But then if your desire is there, then can overrun that. You can get past that. But Chuck, it is a position of perspective, and my perspective is always been affordability. And from an affordability standpoint, if I go to the college that everybody's at 3.5 and I'm at 2.5, then I might get in, but don't expect much investment in you or help. The assistance is not about the only assistance you would get is federal and state. That's it, not from the college.
Well, let me ask you a few more things here, Al. How high do you think your GPA needs to be? Let's say if you have a 2.0 or a 3.0 or something higher than that. Can you give us any guidelines along those standpoints?
So in the United States, I would maintain, this is an opinion now, that there's about 20 perfect colleges for anybody that wants to go to college, including a student that does not have a stellar GPA. So if I was to look at the average, I do believe that a 2.0 might get you into the least selective college. In other words, the college's acceptance rate is 95%. You can fog a mirror and get in type thing. So not a problem. Again, there's a place for you. Uh, but if you're at 3.0, then you're now looking at the colleges that on another ranking have a 60 to 80% acceptance rate. And then of course, if you're at 3.5, then you're now looking at those colleges that are, you know, less than a 60% acceptance rate. So you could use the data, the logic stream, the common sense factor. If you employ all those things, you can sit there and say, okay, this is where I can be. You could go it from the acceptance rate, but I think again, since these grade point averages of last year's freshman class are posted, it might be a little bit faster to just go straight up with what they have. If you're zero point 0.5 less, than the posted freshman class's GPA for last year, then you're at a place where you will probably you could get accepted, but at the same time you're in a place where you will have to work very hard to keep up because the academic level of the peer group in that college will be stronger than yours. Anybody that judges themselves like that is going to have a problem because they're going to say, "Oh my God, I can't go." No, you can go. You can turn that switch on. You can be that stellar student and come out at the top of the class. And actually, a lot of students do that. They turn on that switch, they become the perfect student, and they get it together. But going in, you'd probably want to gauge yourself to be somewhere around close, zero point 0.3, zero point 0.5 close to the posted grade point average for last year's freshman class, as again noted in the stats and College Board and other college search engines.
Before we go on to Gary here, Al, can you explain to everyone that is listening right now what is meant by weighted versus unweighted GPA?
So the colleges will have high schools that come in with letter grades. Some will come in with a 100-point system. Some will come in with a 6.0 system. Some will come in with a 4.0 system. So when you look at those systems, the colleges are going to recalculate and make everybody on the same playing field as everybody else. So it's probably they have charts that they can change all of those different systems into a 4.0 situation. Uh, Now the weighted side is when a student is taking uh, better than standard courses. So you have the standard courses required by the state, and then you have honors and then you have AP courses, and you have IB courses. These are all different levels of academia, different strength levels. The when you have uh, a 4.0 at an AP course, then they're going to weight that as a 4.5 or 4.3. So that then again, it's the grade point average and the difficulty of classes taken to get that grade point average. That's the combination factor. And the weighted is the higher grade point average that you get because you took a higher advanced course than is necessary for that state's requirements for graduation.
In other words, what you're saying here, Al, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but colleges prefer to see that the student has challenged themselves during the high school years. An A or a B rather in advanced classes often looks better than easy straight A basic classes. Is that what you're basically saying whenever it comes to weighted and unweighted?
It shows a leadership issue, so I would agree with that. It's a little, I think it's a little bit more complicated than that, but simplistically saying yes, that's a good way of putting it. You know, to take on the advanced placement class and fail, okay, that's not good. But to take on the advanced placement class and get a B will be better than taking on the standard course and get an A. Now, before anybody jumps and says, "Well, wait a minute." They don't even offer those courses at my high school, so I'm at a disadvantage. No, you could still excel at your class and get an A at standard fare is going to be equal to some degree as a B in an honors situation. So there's 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 consideration for those situations. The colleges know what high schools are offering advanced placement courses and which ones aren't. They look at your transcripts. Uh, so there's a lot of variables here, but the main one that I want to bring back to is affordability. If you are going to go to that college that doesn't really want you, they may accept you and then they do this accept and deny thing where they don't give you any money. They don't invest in you. So you can get in, but if you don't have the grades, you might find yourself paying a lot more money than somebody else unless you pick that college that is a little bit closer to who you are.
Well, that sounds complicated, but I think I understand on that. Uh, Gary, can you give us some ideas on setting some GPA goals?
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the most important things a student has to do. They know what their GPA is, okay? They have to then go look at the colleges that they're interested in. And just to run down it real quick, if a school has an acceptance rate of 15% and you've got a 2.5 GPA, that's a real reach getting into that institution. And as Al says, if you did get into that institution, you're going to be paying the full price for that college. And it may not be the best fit for you either. Now, other schools, let's say the moderate schools, have an acceptance rate of 30 to 60%, and they're requiring minimum GPA, let's say, of a 3.5. Well, that's a little bit closer, but if you're at a 2.5, you're still a ways off a full point. So it's even those could be a reach for a student in that situation. And then if you look at some of the other schools that are less competitive or less selective, let's say, with a 60 to 80% acceptance rate and a 3.0 GPA, you're probably got a chance of getting into that school, especially if you have some strong test scores or extracurricular activity that it all comes into play when they're doing the admissions. And
I see.
I'll say
Go
that
ahead.
also that, I'm an accountant. I want to get through this with the best possible education as I can with the least amount of dollars I have to spend. So that comes into the fray too. You don't want to go in tremendous debt into a school that's going to be extremely hard for you to get through, and you may not, and you end up transferring to another school or dropping out completely. You have to look at it realistically. Chuck, I'll pass it back to you.
All right. Well, let's close this out here. And we can all agree here that your GPA matters a lot, but it's not the old story of getting into the colleges that you're wanting to attend. Now, your GPA should be at least a 2.0 to get into the most of your four-year colleges and universities that are non-selective. But realistically, a 3.0 or higher gives you a much better chance of getting into the college of your choice. And if you're aiming for selective schools, we normally suggest students to have their sights on at least a 3.5 GPA or above. And students also need to remember colleges look at more than just numbers. They care about course rigors, activities, and unique talents of the individual student. So the student needs to push themselves, stay motivated, and set realistic goals based off the schools they want to attend. Now, if you are joining us today, please visit our website at prepareforcollege.com. That's prepare, the number 4, college.com for more information on how to pay for college. So until next time, keep planning smart for your future, and I hope everyone has a great day.